There's no doubt fishing them here totally changed my outlook. There was something about it when I sort of stepped in through the trees. Even from like when I first got there, I walked down the little track like you do at early morning, and then there's this little gap, this little magic hole in the trees. And when I entered that little world, that was it, everything changed. My whole outlook on everything with it. It was just something about it. It was the adventure, I reckon. It was the making of the camps. It was suddenly you had the ultimate prize in front of you, was out there in those waters. And it was the sort of the water, it was so, you know, that deep dark blue with all that lovely weed in it. It had a magic about it. It was almost like a theatre of dreams. When you look down the actual length of it, it was just a big long valley with all the sort of 60-foot trees overhanging. You had the parrots making the noises, which made it almost feel like that sort of jungle element to it. Just suddenly like, this is it. I've sort of, you know, I've found really what I was looking for in my fishing, I suppose, all my life, subliminally. And I just caught the biggest fish in the country. I'd had at Collinbrook, you know, the friendships, we had the social scene, you know, the learning side of it. Suddenly this was just all that put aside. And at the time I thought, you know, what am I going to do now? You know, you caught the biggest fish in the country, but suddenly this whole new challenge opened up when I got there, and it was suddenly you got the most beautiful fish. I suppose at the time it was probably the most iconic fish, you know, of my generation. And just suddenly it was all there for me to live out. Although I've missed a lot from Collinbrook, like the friendships we've formed and having the drinks and the social side of it. 4 years of it on and off at the brook, I thought I just about had enough. And it was nice to, all these things, elements you'd learn of your fishing, you could suddenly take them away to a blank canvas and sort of start putting different things into practice, different things you like from your angling. Even down to your kit, all your tackle setup changed. It was, you know, so different from them days when you used to sit down and it was basically barbecue kit and, you know, your comfortable kit. And, you know, to actually change everything round into this little, you know, everything was small, only took stuff you could need. It was totally, you know, totally different thing, and I loved it. But I did miss the Collinbrook. That's the thing, you know, that side of it, that Friday night of getting there, the company. You know, again, the thing with all your angling, it's so much, there's so many different things you can take from it. So, you know, for this to, you live out one section of it and now to suddenly, it's almost like a whole new realm. As always though, when you're fishing somewhere that you absolutely love and dream of being there, the time there come, you know, to a bit of an end a bit quick. I was ended up, I think, 8 weeks and, you know, the fish was mine, which is another story for another day. But what that gave me after that was, I just wanted to live in this little dream I've just had for the last 8 weeks, this off the beaten track, this making the camps, making the swim in an area when you see the fish, and that's what really fueled me all the way through now. All my fishing pretty much now, that's what I look for, that element of excitement, that element of being on your own, you and nature, you versus the fish. And that to me is everything I adore about my fishing. Bite time on here the last couple of weeks has been sort of 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock in the afternoon, which has been quite handy. So pretty much get the rods done sort of lunchtime-ish now, get your traps nicely set, and then hopefully they'll start creeping down late afternoon for a little bit of a snaffle. It's probably one of the trickiest swims for a cast here with these overhead trees. It's a sort of an under-over, up flick. So there we go. That's it. I've never been really one for those wrap sticks. I always find I either get in the bloody way, or tripping over them, or you never got nowhere to put them. So for me, it's got to be the good old-fashioned emblem 1 yard a turn. Last one. And I reckon this is going to be the hardest one, especially with this wind getting up. Bloody terrible. That's the bobby. Bingo. Beautiful. Lovely drop, like a pavement. Pit I'm on at the moment, it's tucked right in the Ouse Valley. It's a beautiful little place. I suppose I fished the lake next door about 4 years ago and used to sort of walk round it and have a bit of a look. A couple of my friends used to fish it as well at the time and showed me some of the pictures. And it's got these beautiful two commons, what they call the gold and the silver. One's like an escapee from the River Ouse next door there, and I suppose, it must be 30-year-old, 40-year-old fish, beautiful. Little tiny heart tail on it. And then there's a goldfish, which is probably, it's a low 40-pounder, but a lot younger and a lot boxier in shape. And along with that, I suppose you've got about another half a dozen decent mirrors, one, nice scaly Cambridge sort of strains. But there's always that little element here with the river flooding in. A lot of them got stocked obviously by the river, with the floods, and gives it that little element of interest. And again with it, it's the sort of place I just like sitting and fishing really. It's that quiet, you've got the long grass, the meadows, the wildlife especially is out of this world, like we're looking here now, we're sort of early summer and, got all the blackthorns and the buttercups all come over the flood meadows, daisies, it's a beautiful place, but it just has them elements of it that I like. It's quiet, you feel like you can come here and you can fish with the fish. You're not just sitting there, waiting for a swim to come free, like the old days on the circuit waters. It's just that, I don't know, it's like coming back 20 years really when you're fishing. You come through the gate and it's the old little rusty gate and the little tunnels of going off into the swims, of all the old undergrowth. And to me, it sort of brings out that element of being a child again, I suppose. It's that, excitement again, and that, that sense of adventure you get. Biggest sense of adventure you can get over here. It's quite an interesting pit, this. I suppose one of the youngest ones around in the valley. About 25 years old, I would have thought. Maybe even 30. Not even quite 30 years. But it's, long old thin place with a nice sort of shelf down each side, a few bays, and stock-wise, I think there's about 40 fish from what we can make out. Sort of talked about the two big commons and some very nice mirrors, but it's all the odd ones which I like, which gives the attraction to the place, to be honest with you. So for me, that's what really gets me going about it. I suppose the biggest challenge though here can be finding them at times. Being the size of the lake and the shape of it with the little bays they can tuck up, it can be a real 3 or 4 days before you can actually get on them. And especially if you're doing a 3-day trip, it can be blooming hard work. But there's nothing better than one of those mornings when you're having a little creep about and then suddenly one will just slip its head out the water gently, and then you think, right, I'm on you. Then another one, and it's just that, to me, it's that buzz of not having the element as if that swim is free. It's that element of getting your gear, getting your stuff, and getting down there and getting set up on them. And that keeps me, driven really. There's nothing worse I find getting to a pond, on a Friday. You've got your choice of two, and you've got to sit there. For me, the half the fun's the chase, actually looking, the hunting them down, and that to me wins me over every time. Cold old morning again this morning. Well, yesterday we even had a frost, which I thought, crikey, I thought we'd passed all that. I took all my winter gear out and stripped it all out and thought, nah, I'm not going to need that again, the old sun's coming, summer's here, but got caught out again, which you think I'd have learnt after 25 years of blooming fishing. But there you go. Fish-wise, not a lot blooming showing, which is a bit of a pain, but any minute though, you're just looking out there thinking one of those rods could just rip off, so I've got to give it another few hours. I'll probably then have a wind in and go and do another couple of laps, and maybe they've dropped back, in one of the little sunny pockets where there's not a lot of ripple on. I tend to do it a bit in the spring, get out in those little warmer little spots, but no, you never know, you never know. Some of these northeasterlies you get this time of year, they can really, fish get on them. Must be an oxygen thing, this end of the lake, they just follow the oxygen, but this morning they're really thin on the ground. Not a lot showing anywhere, but have a bit of breakfast, leave them out, and you just never know. Got another couple of hours yet of bite time, so turn in a second. Now I heard a couple of fish up here last night, quite late on, so I'm going to flick a lead about, try if I get a nice drop here somewhere, then I'll probably have a little trap out here for tonight, for the morning for them. It's a nice little bay just out the wind. Let's have a go, it was about halfway through. Oh. Bit weedy there. That's what I'm looking for. It's just dropped down into a little gully. Nice little hard silty bottom gully. Nice bit of weed up the sides. I imagine that's pretty much on the area where they came through. Let's have another little go at that. Just have one more cast on that. I just want to make sure that that lands lovely in there. Feel it there. Oh, it's beautiful. It's like a pavement almost at the bottom, nice and hard. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to clip up. And then the beauty of these old emblems, they're like a yard a turn. So all I'll do is count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. It's right, that's 27 turns back to there. So basically 27 yards out. So what I'll do now, tomorrow when I come back, I'll put a little bit of bait on that tonight, clip her up, and then if you turn up, daylight, darkness, 27 back turns, and then you bang on the spot again. So yeah, that's well worth a go. For most of my fishing the last sort of 10, 15 years, I'm always using the braided mainline. Quite simply because there is nothing more accurate, more exaggerated for your feature finding, your fish playing, than using like a braid, a sinking braid. And be honest, I've had this is a test one actually, I've had for thinking anglers for the last couple of seasons, which has been very good. But it's something about it, you know, I find like with mono, you're always looking for that drop. But with braid, it just sort of opens up that drop to sort of 10 or 15 different drops. You know, i.e. your hardness of sand, your gravel, whatever not. And even when I fish the weedy waters as well, what I'll do, I'll tie every foot up the line, I'll put like a overhand knot. And where braid's so sensitive, you'll almost feel the dump, 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 dump down through the holes, which makes it, you know, for me, it just opens your eyes up. And even snag fishing, for instance, you know, the amount of times I see fish, they absolutely do you just on the stretch. I think mono's, I think it's about 15, 20% stretch in it. But with that braid, I just find it so, stops them dead in their tracks, cuts up through the weed. It's just, you know, for me, I couldn't possibly go back to mono if you paid me, really. Only, well, where you're allowed to, of course, anyway. But one thing braid is very good, of course, it gives you that accuracy with your casting and everything else. And for me, I find that quite important. Particularly, I must admit, I do find it more important on the smaller waters where those spots are very much tighter. But obviously, when you're putting bait in and I'm leaving a spot, I want to be absolutely bang on that square 2 foot if I can when I come back, just to keep everything bang on tight. And of course, with the braid, you haven't got that stretch factor in it. You can just walk her out to the inch and then bang, I'll be straight on that. And you know, you're fishing, you know, bang on the money. In this sort of game as well, you struggle as well, might get 2, 3 opportunities a summer. So I just want to know that if that's sitting out there for 24 hours and those fish come in, it's basically, I'm sitting there thinking I'll put that out with a boat with that accuracy. So everything is sitting there and that is your confidence. And of course, confidence in your big carp fishing is pretty much 90% of it. I tend not to get too overexcited or fussy with my rigs. I have sort of 3 main criteria, which is strength, effectiveness, and basically tangle free. I love the strength because obviously these waters we're fishing are absolutely chocker with weed in the summer, so something, you know, is going to hang on to them is what I'll try and look for. I think on this one I've got like a size 5 hook on a pop-up presentation, a bit of recoil for the hook section, which I've sort of a slight curve in there, what you can see. That'll fish straight onto a nice size, I think that's a size 11 ring swivel, and then I'll use a 25-pound tongue skin as the actual boom section. I do like to use my loops a little bit bigger, so you just get a little bit of movement up, down, left and right along that boom section, which is no real reason, as it just basically it's a little bit different for them to deal with when they pick it up. And then I'll just generally always fish that with an helicopter setup. Probably 90% of my fishing's with helicopter. I just love the way you can present it in weed. You can slide this stop up and down. Obviously the depth of silt, you're fishing into softer bottom, harder bottom. But basically that covers probably 90% of my fishing nowadays, unless I'm fishing the bottom bait. It's a nice easy rig to tie, this one. It's basically, I'll pull off 6 inches of recoil, and then what I'll do, I'll get a size 5 out-turned eyed hook, in which I'll knot this knot at 2, form a little D with a run ring on, and burn it on one end. That then I'll tie to the size 11 ring swivel, about 1.5 inches long, which I'll form a loop. I'll make the boom section by using a bit of 25-pound tungskin. What I'll do, I'll tie an overhand knot, leaving about 1 inch size loop at one end, which gives it that movement we talked about earlier. And then I'll fish that probably 6 to 8 inches long straight onto the swivel on my helicopter. So it's been a real hard summer really down here, all in all. Although I did manage to nick one, probably early July, which you know, was a real cracking fish, beautiful scaly, one of the real old ones that got in from the river. So that sort of set me up really for the rest of the summer. But since then it's been very hard work. Just a few factors have changed really. It's been a lot more anglers fishing it. It's usually a very weedy lake, and this year it just hasn't grown in any amount. And that tends to hold the fishing areas that makes them, I think, a lot more catchable. Though it's a real tough old lake this, it's the surroundings that keeps bringing me back. You've got so much around you. It's like, you know, we've got a lot of good mates around here. You've got a nice pack of horses they keep here, so they've been keeping me company. All in all, it's just a lovely, lovely place to fish. Peace and quiet on that front. That's what we all subscribe to and that's what we enjoy. There's something about late summer that I really love, and it's just the way everything's starting to get tired. Everything's starting to sort of finish, the flowerings are done, the birds are starting to change now, you're getting all the different ones coming in from around Europe. Definitely a different air about it. You almost feel like you're coming to the end of a party. That sort of time when, you know, the guests start going home and it's sort of starting to quieten down and the old atmosphere changes, but it's still like a magical time because obviously we've got the best season around the corner, you know, which I love, which is autumn. And that's not far away at all. And then obviously we watch all the real change of season then, but you almost feel that solitary side of like the fishing coming in again, starting to creep in, that, you know, autumny, wintry time coming in when it's like, you know, you're like in an empty park or whatever, but it's just something about it, you know, it has a totally different air. Fish as well, late summer, the fish are getting their weight back and they've obviously had a good summer's eating and the condition starts really coming out in them. So it's just, you know, it's a fabulous time really still to be out. And again, we've still got the temperature now as well, which is nice. We're not all real wrapped up yet. You're not getting all the thermals out. So you've got the best of both worlds. It's lovely. I don't know where these fish are really today. They've gone a bit quiet again. We had a little bit of a slight wind change this morning, which I thought might have shifted them, but no, they're keeping their heads down. Probably sitting around in a blooming out of bounds again. But it's been a real funny feeding time this year. They're sort of 10 o'clock in the morning and then sort of late afternoon sort of time. It's been a real good time for a bite. Well, this is a real well-known area for the two big commons that live in here to get caught sort of end of the summer. So it's sort of middle of the pond, getting into the deeper water, but there's a lovely feature that runs through. It's almost like a broken bar, probably like a pile of spoil piles from when they dug it. So it's got quite humpy and then drops, and then you've got another rump that'll come up. But it's sort of an area the fish seem to gravitate to quite a lot this time of year. There's some nice clay at the base of it, so I imagine that plays a bit of a part in it. But yeah, I'm just tending, like we said earlier, about it being such a tough year, and I'm just sort of putting all my money on sort of trying out one of them big ones. Got a big carp bait on there. It's a big carp spot, so like it's got to be well worth a bash. That's lovely, that's right on the sort of shallow peak of it almost. So I'm sort of edging my bets with the depths. I've got one sort of probably 8-9 foot of water there. It's about as shallow as it gets, and then I thought I'd fish the other one a little bit further down the shelf in the sort of 10-12 foot. They're so up and down with their depths, I find, later on in the summer. You get the cooler nights, they seem to want to show in the deeper water, but you get the warmth and the cloud coming like I think we got tonight, and they seem to want to sort of show on them shallower spots. So anyway, it's out there, we'll see how it goes. Just moving this onto a little slightly shallower spot out on this apron in front of us. It's an absolute bobby dazzler. It's a nice bit of dying weed down there, and I see a fish. It's sort of, I don't know, almost sort of not spooked, but sort of bow waved off it this morning first light. So I thought I'd move one rod up. It's, it's come out quite mild as well, so obviously that'll probably keep me up in the shallower water maybe tonight. So I'm going to move this up into about sort of 6-7 foot, and then a little bit of pellet and a little few boilies around it, and just see what happens. It's definitely worth a shout, absolutely well worth a shout. I'm always worried about these pits, how long really we got left to fish them, with predation, and obviously land's not worth a fortune now, so you sort of tend to think, crikey, they're running out. I think it was back in about 2010, it was a real sort of dark couple of years. It was, we lost a lot of the big sort of iconic fish, Black Mirror, the Grey Lady up here, in the, not too far from here. Quite a few of the big ones went, and of course, you think, really, this is it, we're on borrowed time, but it just amazes me now how many more carp are like coming up through, they're appearing everywhere, all around the country, as well as south, up north, Midlands, and I really believe like the future of it's really starting to come into fruition. I think it was probably like the mid-90s, I think a lot of the farmers and a lot of sort of people who own water sort of, because carp fishing took off in that big boom in the early 80s, it was suddenly them trout lakes that we've had sitting around that no one really fishes now, I think they suddenly sort of cottoned on their worth a bit of money, with a few carp in, and obviously they started buying the carp, they were more readily available from the breeders, started stocking them, and of course now we're 30 years down the line, and it's amazing how many big carp we've got, popping up around the country. Especially like 50-pounders as well, and beautiful 50-pounders. And of course, after that, the lakes I like to fish, the sort of more left alone ones, they become a nice byproduct of it. Obviously we've had the weather changes, so now we get a lot of floods, which takes a carp that have been stocked into one lake, spreads them around, sorts out the weaker of the bunch, and then those real survivors, they tend to get somehow into these sort of waters and get left alone. And again, like any wild creature, they thrive on neglect, especially our neglect, and you think it's coming to an end, and then you learn about another one, and then in that county there's another 2 and 3, and so I think the future's pretty bright. Hopefully it'll outsee me anyway, a good few fish, and the way it's going, I think there'll be a lot for the next few generations as well. So it's looking good in my eyes, definitely. And you never know, there's a Black Mirrors or the what's his name sort of carp, this carp, they're out there. They're probably out there in these lakes, and you never know, that estate lake that's been owned by an anti-fishing family for like lots of years, that'll change hands and we might get a fish one. So you never know, there's got to be a Black Mirror out there or another great big 2-tone or something, but that's the beauty of it, it's there to be found, and the more you seek, the more you search. So the rods are all set, in half look nice and carpy. Full moon tonight as well, which means that's going to be a big common moon, so fingers crossed, rods are out, let's see what happens. Well, that was a night that never happened. Full moon, not a bloody sausage, but I don't know, the weather's changed today. We've got a bit of northwest, so it's swung round. Lovely low pressure. And I mean, it's probably about 9 o'clock in the morning, so it's a bit of a day-bitey lake here, so any one of them could go still any minute at all. But it's just, I don't know, the fish, they're really low on the ground again. Not, I was up just before light, sitting here, having a little mooch. Not a sausage again, not a sausage. So I'm just going to sit here, I think, today anyway, at least see the day out till like late afternoon, and then I'll probably just have a walk round and have a bit of a rethink for, you know, I've got another couple of nights this week, got a week off, so I'm going to probably have a little mooch around, have a little go somewhere else. There's a couple of areas where they seem to gravitate to a little bit. I might have a little try in there, go and bury myself up in the reed bed there. But see how the day goes really. You can all change in a second, so see what goes. I was so glad I stuck to my guns, sticking with that boilie approach. I've sort of been sticking a little bit of bait up on this bar that runs right down the sort of more or less centre of the lake, which I know they use as that roadway. So I just had a little bit trickled in there, and I thought I'd drop back on when we had a wind change. It sort of went a bit northerly, which sort of blew up here. So got myself round here and topped it up and put my rods out, settled myself back down for the evening into the night, and I couldn't believe it. After about 3 hours of sitting here, the old tip hooped round, out the clip and off it went, and yeah, hooked onto a nice decent fish really. It felt from the start, and then got it in, and it was that mad mirror they call it, which is probably the prize, you know, prize mirror of the lake. 37 pound and all of it, which is like cracking, you know, real nice big fish. And I absolutely made up with it, absolutely made up. And then just like buses, another one come along the next day, and well, that's that. Well, that's what it's all about to me. It's been a long old time coming, this one. It's been a long old summer, but even though they're rod uns like that, that is perfect, just what I'm after. You've probably got a few stories to tell, this one. Absolutely perfect. That's what it's all about to me. Well worth the wait.